everyone. Welcome to the town hall today. Today the talk is going to be pain we can't see. And we are going to focus the energies on stress, anxiety, and well-being. 咁今日嗰個講座咧就叫做看不見的傷痛，係講壓力、焦慮同埋我哋嘅精神健康嘅。So I'm Diana Liao, the director of the Asian Health Institute at UCSF, and 我就係劉雪葉，係呢個加州大學舊金山分校亞裔健康研究院嘅主任。咁我哋每個月都多數做一兩次呢啲講座嘅。咁咧今日同埋我一齊嘅咧就係有 Mr. Michael Liao 廖仲偉先生，佢係NICOS 嘅 Program Director 節目總監。咁咧同埋佢一齊嘅咧就係有 Ian Chan 陳以欣，佢係幫Ian 幫Michael 翻譯嘅。咁Michael 咧就會用英文講啦，咁陳以欣咧就會係用中文講，用廣東話講。咁佢哋兩位咧都係呢個 NICOS Chinese Health Coalition 嘅得力嘅員工嚟嘅。咁咧就Ian 就其實係個 intern 嚇，咁有一個咁好嘅地方俾佢 intern 係一個非常之好嘅經驗嚟嘅。咁NICOS 咧就係華人健康組織聯會。So both Michael and Ian are from NICOS Chinese Health Coalition. Let's stop for a moment and look at this table here. This came from the analysis done by the UCLA Center for Health Policy and AAPI Data Department. And it's based on the data from the 2021 surveys. For the first time, Cheese asked the question, are you very worried or somewhat worried about being a victim of gun violence? So this is the question here that they asked on being a victim of gun violence. And this is what they asked, are you very worried or somewhat worried? And these are the responses between the two of them. And you can see this table is about the different racial groups for people in California. And it includes AAPI. This is all races. And then you have whites, Black, and Hispanic. And Asians stood out. 2 out of 3 Asians are very worried or somewhat worried. And then this table is the same question, but the groups are different. So here we look at the subgroups. So you say, Asians and Pacific Islanders, so how do they break out? And we found out that the Asians, the Koreans are actually a little bit more worried than Filipinos. Filipinos and Chinese end up with the same number, 66%. So it's still 2 out of 3, right? People are worried. And so that didn't matter, change too much among the Asian subgroups. The only group that may be a little less worried are the Japanese group. So what you see here is that a lot of us are worried. But unfortunately, that's not our only worry, right? Because we also have other worries. We worry about getting COVID and long COVID. We worry about getting hit when we walk on the street, our personal safety. We also worry about hate crimes, discrimination, xenophobia, racism, all that, which has been laid bare during the pandemic within the Asian community. We worry about children not going to school and doing remote learning at home. We worry about our jobs. Some people have lost their jobs. We worry about having not enough money for our bread and butter. And we worry about our health. We have so much to worry about, right? A lot of people also worry about that, but it seems like the Asian community is really taking a harder hit from those survey results that we saw. So to deal with this crisis, we have invited the mental health expert, which is Michael Liao of NICOS, to come and join us to do a deeper dive into our community's unseen pain, and that's our mental health issues, and to coach us what to do. 咁呢啲數據咧，你喺度咧就喺加州大學嘅羅省嘅分校嗰度得到嚟嘅。嗰個部門咧就係一個專係做亞裔數據嘅部門嚟嘅。咁咧呢個survey 咧調查訪問咧係每隔幾年做一次嘅。咁呢個咧就係2021年最近嗰個做嘅，就係呢個加州健康嘅訪談調查數據。咁咧問嘅一條問題咧就係第一次問啦，就係話佢問全部揀出嚟嗰啲人啊，佢話你會唔會擔心為咗呢個支槍嘅暴力成為呢個支槍暴力嘅受害者啊？咁咧就發覺咧原來咧 亞裔啊，係比其他嘅族裔咧係多人擔心好多嘅，差唔多係3個之中有2個會擔心會成為係受害者嘅。咁咧而喺亞裔之中咧，我哋發覺咧，大部分亞裔咧都係好擔心嘅，都係差唔多3個之中有2個係會覺得係自己會係受害者嘅。咁除即係最少嗰個咧就係日本人啦，日本裔啦。咁所以咧呢啲咁嘅數據咧令到我哋好擔心。但係其實我哋擔心嘅嘢咧就真係唔止淨係呢個槍支暴力成為槍支暴力嘅受害者，我哋行出街都驚人俾人打親嘅，係咪好多謝？咁咧我哋咧擔心個人安全啦，我哋又擔心會感染呢個新冠肺炎啊，又會呢個長新冠啊，呢啲所有嘅病症咧我哋都好擔心嘅。我哋又擔心俾人炒魷魚啦，係咪？俾人炒咗魷魚咁啊，柴米油鹽醬醋茶我哋又要擔心啦喎。咁所以好多嘢都擔心。細路仔翻學咧，佢哋唔翻學喺屋企嗰度嚟到做呢個遙距嘅學校咧，我哋又擔心佢哋成績唔好，第日會唔夠人咁叻啦。咁所以咧呢個各種嘅情況之下咧，係令到我哋好擔心啦，又引致我哋憂慮啦，又引致我哋會係覺得可能係有憂鬱症啊，甚至有其他嘅精神病嘅問題嘅。咁所以咧，我哋今日咧就好特別，呢個其實係一個好 it's a crisis in the making. And as we see that the COVID crisis is leaving us, this other mental health crisis is surfacing and floating to the top, and is something that we need to look at very seriously right now, as a lot of us are kind of shaken by the recent killings. Now, this data, you notice, is in 2021. That was before the January killings, one in Monterey Park near LA in Southern California, and the other one is in Half Moon Bay in Northern California. These 2 killings were done by Asians, killing other Asians. And that shocked the Asian community so badly that we have to kind of deal with it and kind of pick it into pieces. But that's just on top of everything else, right? So we are kind of very lucky to have Mr. Michael Liao here today. 咁我哋今日咧就真係好高興啊！Michael 可以嚟同我哋廖生啊，可以嚟同我哋講呢個我哋精神健康嘅問題，因為實在呢啲數據咧，真係喺2021年嘅時候攞啦。咁嗰陣時，我哋今年1月嘅時候有2個大槍殺嘅事件，係亞裔打死其他嘅亞裔噶嘛，咁啊死咗好多人嘅。咁呢2個事件咧，真係整到我哋嘅精神咧係非常精神狀況非常之差嘅。咁好多人都好驚。咁所以咧，今日咧。我哋雖然話而家個新冠肺炎而家冇乜啦，可以大家出街都唔使戴口罩啦，咁大家都要小心係咪？但係咧，除此之外咧，新冠肺炎就好似少咗啲問題啦，但係呢個精神病嘅問題咧就係即係升得好快嘅，係成為一個危機啊！咁所以我哋一定要將呢個危機處理好。所以我哋今日咧就係改咗個課題嘅，本來唔係講呢樣嘢嘅，但係因為有嗰件槍殺嘅事件發生咧，所以我哋將個課題改咗嘅。So 而家將個咪交翻俾Michael， 咁我咧就 stop sharing， 等Michael share， 好唔好？
So thank you so much, Diana, and to the Asian Health Institute for inviting NICOS to be a part of this wonderful program. We were originally going to speak on a different topic, but because of all the things that are happening, we worked with Diana closely to develop a curriculum that NICOS has been delivering to other groups about thinking about our mental wellness, thinking about stress and anxiety, and how do we better cope with that. So let's begin with quick introductions of me and my colleague. The cat is cute, but they're not presenting today. So it's Ian, who is behind the cat, who is presenting today. So my name is Michael. I'm the director of programs at NICOS Chinese Health Coalition. I've been at NICOS for a very long time. This is actually about my 18th year at the organization. I have a master's degree in social work, although I would probably not say I'm an expert in mental health because I'm not a licensed social worker. I'm not a licensed therapist, but I have done a lot of studies around mental health and addiction studies. And that's what some of the knowledge that I hope to bring to you today. And I was originally born in Taiwan. And so I'm going to go ahead and let Ian help me translate and also introduce herself.
係咁Michael 咧就係呢個華人健康組織聯會嘅項目總監啦。咁佢由呢個2006年就加入咗呢個 NICOS 啦。咁咧佢係畢業於Berkeley 大學，然之後並獲得呢個社工嘅博士學位嘅。咁佢原籍咧係台灣，但係咧就可以講呢個非常流利嘅普通話啦。咁係啦，咁而家咧就我自己介紹下自己啦。咁我叫Ian啦，中文名係陳以欣，咁係嚟自呢個舊金山州立大學嘅 BASW 學生啦。咁同樣都係一個社工嘅部門嘅。咁而家就係呢個華人健康組織嘅intern 啦，實習生。咁我同時都會識講呢個普通話同埋粵語嘅。
Ian is our wonderful social work undergraduate intern who's about to graduate in May. So we're really happy and grateful to be able to have Ian with us and to help me with this particular program today. So we're going to go ahead and begin. A quick introduction on NICOS as well, a little bit about our organization. Some of you may not have heard of NICOS before. We're a fairly small nonprofit organization located within San Francisco's Chinatown. Our mission is to enhance the health and the well-being of San Francisco's Chinese community. So NICOS has various projects ranging from helping new immigrants to enroll in health insurance programs such as Medi-Cal or Cover California, to programs that address different kinds of addictions, such as gambling and or video gaming and screen use. We also have been doing a lot of work around mental health and how culture plays a role in mental health.
咁可能好多人都冇聽過 NICOS 啦。咁 NICOS 咧就中文就係呢個健康呢個華人健康組織聯會啦。咁係一個好細嘅非牟利機構嘅，響三藩市唐人埠。咁咧呢個NICOS 呢個名咧就係首先係嚟自呢個最原先嘅5個合作伙伴嘅名而組出嚟嘅。咁咧就係成立於1985年嘅。咁咧，我哋同時咧都有好多唔同嘅項目啦，有幫呢個中國家庭啦，去有需要嘅話咧，就幫佢哋申請呢個白卡啊，或者係投保加州。咁同時有好多唔同嘅呢個學習項目，咁就有遊戲啊，有講呢個電腦嘅屏幕使用時間啊，或者係呢一個問題賭博啦。
So briefly, we'll run through the agenda for today's discussion. So we're going to begin by talking about what is stress, what does it do to our health and overall well-being? How does that impact our ability to go through life? And are there ways of coping with stress? Are there unhealthy and healthier ways to cope with stress? And finally, we'll also talk about stigma. Why is it difficult for some to ask for help? And we're going to wrap up with some resources for folks who may be struggling with stress.
咁呢個就係我哋今日嘅呢一個議程項目啦。咁首先我哋會講下咩嘢係壓力啦，然之後就係壓力同埋健康，仲有唔健康同埋健康嘅應對方式，同埋點解人會好難咁樣去開口去問人哋幫助啦，尋求幫助啦，同埋一啲資源嘅。
So let's start with a conversation about what is stress. So, what is stress? Is stress always bad for us, or can it sometimes be good? And, how does stress affect our health?
咁我哋首先咧就嚟傾一傾壓力係一個咩概念啦，同埋咩嘢係壓力，同埋壓力咧係好嘅，仲係唔好嘅。咁壓力又會點樣影響到我哋嘅健康咧？
So stress actually is a natural part of how we respond to challenging situations, right? Stress is natural, is normal. And stress can actually help us prepare our bodies and our minds to meet those challenges. But stress can also get out of hand and become difficult for us to manage.
咁其實咧，壓力咧係我哋身體面臨挑戰嘅時候咧而作出嘅呢個自然反應啦。咁壓力咧同時都可以幫我哋去應對呢一啲挑戰。咁當然啦，咁壓力有時候咧都會令到我哋失控嘅。
So let's watch a video. We're going to start with a video that explains something called the stress bucket concept. And so in a moment, I'm going to show you a video that is in English with Chinese subtitles.
咁我哋陣間咧就會俾一個呢個視頻俾大家睇啦。咁呢個視頻咧就會解釋俾大家聽呢一個壓力會即係如何睇待壓力帶俾我哋嘅影響啊，同埋一個叫壓力筒嘅一個嘢啦。咁佢就會咁呢個視頻咧會係英文嘅，但係佢會有中文字幕。
Stress is a part of life, and while some stress can help you stay focused and complete a task, too much stress can impact your mental and physical health. One way to think about the impact stress has on your life is to use the analogy of the stress bucket. In this analogy, the bucket represents your capacity to manage stress, and the water represents the accumulation of all the stress in your life. Over the course of a day, a number of stressful events can accumulate in your stress bucket, causing your stress levels to rise. You might have an assessment coming up, be worried about money, or be in conflict with family or friends. If you have no way of handling all this built-up stress, you may feel overwhelmed, angry, or unable to cope. Your stress bucket begins to overflow. And worse still, research has found prolonged exposure to everyday stress can make you more susceptible to anxiety and depression, weight gain, heart disease, and it can even weaken your immune system. In times of stress, it can be tempting to turn to quick fixes like consuming alcohol, drugs, comfort eating, or avoiding the problem. While this may provide short-term relief, the stress still remains, often making you more stressed as a result. It's not all bad news though, as there are proven strategies that you can use to lower your stress level. Mindfulness and relaxation techniques will not only help you handle your stress, but will also improve your memory and recall. Try breathing deeply and slowly, which will calm your body and mind. Exercise, go for a walk, and get your body moving. This releases endorphins, boosting your mood and motivation. Do something you love, like watching a movie, listening to music, or catching up with friends. Learn to control your time and prioritize. Focus on what needs to be done first. And be kind to yourself. Eat healthy food, sleep for at least 7 hours a night, and take it one step at a time. Finally, get some help. You don't have to manage your stress on your own, so get help from a counselor or friends. All these strategies are proven ways to reduce stress. Stress is a part of life, and while you can't control the stressful situations that come into your life, you can control how you respond to and manage them. That bit is up to you.
And I really like the message at the end is that, stress, you can't control whether you have stress in your life. It's all going to be part of, being human. But what we could do differently is how we respond to stress. Let's talk about stress in our modern day, okay? So now that we talked about the stress bucket, let's talk about in 2023, what are some of the stresses that we might experience and put in our buckets, right? Of course, all of us on a day-to-day basis may have the normal day-to-day stresses, like worrying about money or work or how we're going to put food on the table, or maybe if we're in school. But in addition to all of these normal day-to-day stressors, 2023 and during the pandemic also brought us a lot of new stresses, right? Such as Diana mentioned earlier, being afraid of catching COVID or dealing with COVID or family members that had COVID. We also had experienced unprecedented natural disasters, from wildfires to more recently in the Bay Area, major storms, right? We also have experienced a rise in anti-Asian hate and discrimination and violence. And of course, even more recent, we've experienced some major mass shootings that were very close to home, both in Half Moon Bay and also in the Southern California area that really impacted the Asian American communities.
咁我相信大家睇完嗰個視頻都多多少少了解到呢個壓力筒啦。咁我哋而家就嚟傾一下，嚟了解一下大家嘅壓力筒入邊都有啲乜嘢啦。咁同埋2023年嘅壓力都嚟邊度咧？咁我相信大家每日都有壓力嘅。咁啲壓力可能來自呢個錢啦，可以嚟自呢個工作啦，或者係呢個食物啊，或者係學業方面。咁同時咧，我哋都有額外嘅壓力嘅，咁就好似呢個新冠肺炎同埋呢個自呢個疫情期間咧，我哋同時都經歷過或者睇到過好多呢個雙仇恨事件啦，仲有呢一啲自然災害、火山暴風同埋仲有就係呢個最近發生嘅呢個大規模槍擊事件啦。咁呢一啲咧，所有都可以係增加我哋壓力嘅因素嚟嘅。
So what happens when our stress bucket gets too full, and what happens when it stays full, right? Just like so many of us over the pandemic may have experienced more stress than normal for such a long period of time, that this prolonged stress can actually impact our whole body. So let's talk about some of the ways stress can impact our health.
咁當我哋嘅壓力筒長期太滿嘅時候咧，我哋應該點算咧？咁同埋所有呢啲積埋嘅壓力咧，點樣先可以即係我哋點樣可以解決同埋點樣可以令佢點樣可以影響到我哋嘅健康咧？咁我哋而家就嚟了解一下啦。
Of course, many of us, when we experience too much stress, probably all have experience some of these symptoms, right? When we have a really bad day, when we, have a lot of, things on our mind, we might have headaches, we might experience even chest tightness or pains, maybe having upset stomach or digestive issues, feeling really tired and fatigued, or maybe having hard time sleeping at night because we have so much on our mind.
咁我哋有時候覺得壓力大嘅時候咧，大部分人咧都會有經歷過呢個身體上帶俾我哋嘅呢個不適啦。咁例如頭痛胸痛胃痛或者係疲勞，或者係睡眠不足。
But in addition to these physical consequences of too much stress, stress and prolonged stress can also impact our emotional and mental well-being. So too much stress, for example, can cause us to experience anxiety, depression. It could make it so that it's difficult for us to focus for our work or maybe at school. It could also lead to anger, right? This is, I think, an important piece, especially with all of the things that were happening around the mass shootings, right? There's obviously a lot of anger rooted in those behaviors. And of course, it could make us feel irritable and restless as well.
咁除咗呢個身體上嘅呢個帶俾我哋嘅呢個影響之外咧，仲有精神上嘅影響都會係一種折磨嚟嘅。咁我哋壓力太大嘅時候咧，就可能會即係感覺到焦慮或者係憂鬱咁同時咧，我哋又會即係冇辦法喺工作上或者係學習上呢個集中精神啦。咁同時我哋亦都會好容易咁樣覺得即係好容易發嬲或者可能會令到我哋呢個煩躁不安嘅。
So I wanted to share one example. We talked about earlier that one of the stresses in the pandemic is the rise in anti-Asian hate. And this is a story in San Francisco Bay Area of Miss Xie, who was assaulted in San Francisco's Chinatown. And following that experience of being physically assaulted, she had experienced a lot of emotional trauma and pain. She was afraid to leave the house, and that she would experience bouts of uncontrollable crying.
係啦，咁我哋講翻啱啱我哋其中一個壓力咧，就係呢個亞裔嘅仇恨事件啦。咁我哋咧就可以用到呢一個謝婆婆嘅呢個遭遇啦。咁自從佢經歷過呢件事之後咧，佢咧就會即係驚出門啊，或者成日都有呢個情緒不穩定嘅發生啊。雖然我哋冇親身經歷過啦。但係咧，呢啲新聞啊，我哋睇到嘅新聞都可能會影響到我哋嘅，令我哋覺得唔安全啊，或者我哋會即係會亂諗啊，會唔會係下一個受害者咧？
So even though not all of us experience these incidents ourselves, right? We may not all be directly victimized. Even being a vicarious, witness, right? Maybe hearing about it from friends or seeing this on the news every day could impact us emotionally as well, right? News like these seeing people who look like us being victimized can make us feel unsafe, can make us feel like we could be the next victims, right? And that can additionally create a sense of stress. So let's talk about what are some ways we cope with stress. So sometimes when the stress bucket is too full, it might be tempting for us to use some fast solutions, right? That quickly gives us immediate relief. But sometimes some of these quick strategies may not solve the underlying problems. And actually, just like the video said, it could actually make the problems worse and increase your stress in the long run, right? In addition, sometimes we might become overly dependent on these strategies, and where it might even become an addiction. So some examples of these unhealthy ways to cope with stress could be maybe resorting to alcohol or using other substances to numb ourselves, maybe, binge watching TV or excessively using our technology and screens so that we don't have to think about real life problems, or maybe even using smoking or gambling to pick ourselves up and feel better, right? All of these could give you quick temporary relief, but we could potentially become too dependent on them, and that could lead to greater problems.
咁我哋要點樣去應對呢啲壓力咧？咁我哋壓力大嘅時候咧，我哋通常都會利用一啲錯嘅方式去令到自己自我麻痹啊，或者係一啲唔健康嘅方式。咁呢啲咧反而唔可以解決到問題啦，而會令呢個事情更加嘅嚴重。咁同時咧，有可能會令我哋有呢個對呢啲唔健康嘅方式有依賴性啦。咁咧一啲唔健康嘅方式咧都有好似飲酒啊，或者係利用呢個手機嚟逃避呢個現實啦，又或者係利用抽煙或者係賭博嚟逃避現實咁樣嘅。咁咧一時嘅放鬆咧，就好可能會令到你即係依賴呢一啲唔健康嘅方式㗎啦。所以我哋要即係好pay attention to.
When we were creating this presentation, Diana asked us to include some information about guns and firearms and how that has been changing within the Asian American community since the pandemic. So I did some research and was quite shocking actually to learn about some of these statistics. For example, that during the pandemic, because of those statistics that Diana has just shown, that such a large percentage of Asian Americans were feeling unsafe were feeling like they could potentially become victimized, that gun ownership actually significantly increased within the Asian American community, right? It increased by 43%. That's really tremendous. In addition to that, actually, let me just stop there and let's do the translation first.
OK， 我哋同時都加咗呢個槍擊同埋對健康嘅影響嘅呢一個資訊項呢度咧，咁咧就係因為我哋大家都唔想成為下一個受害者嘅。咁自從有呢啲事件發生之後咧，咁咧自呢個疫情期間咧，擁有槍擊嘅美國亞裔就增加咗43%啦。
Great, thank you. And so, the question here is, does this actually make us safer, right? I think certainly owning a firearm and a lethal weapon like a gun could potentially make someone feel more safe, right? Could make them feel more secure. But let's look at the statistics, right? We know that households that have guns, right? Those who live in households that have guns are 4 times more likely to die by accidental shooting with a firearm versus households without. And if you have children in the household, most experts that work with children, such as pediatricians, will recommend that the safest homes for children is a home that has no guns, right? That in households with guns, kids and adolescents are much more likely to die either by suicide or homicide with a gun, right? And so does this really make us safer?
咁擁有呢個槍喺屋企真係會令到我哋覺得更加安全嘛？咁其實咧研究表明咧，有槍嘅即係家庭咧，你會死於槍擊意外嘅可能性係冇槍嘅家庭嘅4倍。咁喺有槍嘅家庭入邊咧，兒童同埋青少年咧，亦都更有可能會死於呢個槍擊有關嘅事件啦，或者係自殺同埋謀殺嘅。
So let's talk about some healthier ways to cope, right? We just said earlier, it's okay once in a while to engage in some of those other quick fixes. Like once in a while, we binge watch TV when we're really tired, or maybe have some alcohol with dinner to relax. But for the long run, these are going to be healthier, longer term ways to cope with our stress. So let's look at some of these. Nutrition can be really important, right? What we put into our bodies can really affect not only our physical well-being, but also our emotional and mental well-being. We also can really engage in more physical activities and exercise because it releases good, healthy chemicals to combat stress. It's a natural antidepressant and stress relief. So it doesn't have to be very intense. You don't have to do marathon workouts, right? It can be something as simple as taking a walk outside, getting fresh air. Can be things like picking up healthy hobbies, things like reading, art, or even having pets, right? You saw in the picture that Ian has 3 cats, I have 2 cats, and you know what? Ooh, they really help de-stress a lot. Also, talking to people, right? Finding people that you trust and you connect with to share about what you're going through can be really, really important as well.
係啦，咁啱啱講咗一啲唔健康嘅方式啦，例如呢個抽煙啊，或者飲酒啊，或者係利用呢個手機去逃避現實咧，都係一時嘅輕鬆而又快出嘅，可以解決我哋嘅壓力啦。咁而家咧，我哋就嚟講下一啲更加健康嘅應對方式啦。咁我哋可以通過呢個健康飲食啦。咁對食嘅有研究咧，可以令我哋精神上同埋生理上都得到好好嘅營養啦。咁同時咧，運動都係一種好好嘅解壓方式嘅。咁唔使話要去跑一個馬拉松啊，或者要去呢個 做 gym 啊，或者係做好多呢啲大量嘅運動嘅，其實咧就算出去散下步啊，都會有幫助嘅。咁同時亦都好重要嘅係可以培養一啲健康嘅愛好啊，好似讀書、畫畫、聽音樂，甚至可以養一隻寵物都得嘅。好似啱啱 Michael 講咗啦，佢屋企有養2隻貓啊，我屋企都有養3隻貓。咁其實養寵物係一種好好嘅，可以幫到你解壓嘅一個方式嘅。咁其實咧最重要嘅咧就係有一個值得信任同埋可以同值得信任嘅人去傾訴自己嘅經歷同埋自己嘅一啲煩惱嘅。
Let's also have some discussions about, the last strategy we said was to talk to people, right? Talk to someone. And of course, during the pandemic, that became really challenging, right? Especially in the beginning where we were isolated, we had much harder time, especially those with technology barriers or, like older folks may have a harder time keeping connected with people. So let's talk about why is it hard to ask for help, especially within the Chinese and Asian American cultures.
咁我哋而家咧就會講下點解有啲人會難以開口啊，去揾人哋幫手咧，係即係有問題都即係唔出聲啊咁樣。咁其實咧特別係呢一個中國家庭或者係呢一個亞裔嘅家庭入邊，通常會發生嘅一啲事嘅。
Let's look at some of these quotes, right? So sometimes it can be a sense of shame, right? What if people know about what I'm going through? What will they say about me? What will they think, right? Or we might feel a sense of guilt that I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be a burden to my loved ones, my family. And sometimes we may also just want to avoid the issue altogether, right? I'm not feeling any symptoms. Why should I go talk to a therapist, right? I'm feeling fine. And for many Asian Americans, sometimes it's also this sense of we should keep some of these issues within the family, right? We shouldn't air dirty laundry. This is a family issue. People who are outside of the family shouldn't know, right?
咁一啲呢個就係一啲原因啦，係點解我哋有啲人會有口難言咁樣啦？點解唔揾人嚟幫手啊？點解唔講出自己嘅煩惱啊？咁有可能佢哋會覺得即係會覺得呢件事好醜啊！咁俾人知道咗，佢哋會點樣睇我咧？會點樣講我咧？有可能會好內疚啊！因為唔想要即係令到身邊嘅人啦，或者係自己嘅小朋友有負擔。咁同時咧，都可能係一個自我麻痹，或者係逃避呢一件事嘅。咁覺得我都唔覺得自己有啲乜嘢問題，都唔使睇心理醫生啦。又或者係最多即係中國屋企中國家庭入邊咧，最罩忌嘅就係呢個家醜不可外揚啦，呢個係一個屬於家庭嘅問題嚟嘅，唔可以等人哋知道嘅，我唔可以去同人哋講我嘅煩惱嘅。
Sometimes people may think that asking for help may be a sign of weakness, right? That, I should figure it out myself, right? Everyone's got problems, so I should just try to solve it on my own. There's also, you might hear people say, this is my fate, right? I have to accept it. Must have done something in my past life to deserve this, right? And finally, there's also, unfortunately, people who feel like it's hopeless, it's too late, right? That maybe there's no hope to get better, that no one can understand what they're going through or help them, and that it's even too late to get any help.
咁仲有一啲就係有啲人會覺得揾人哋幫手係一種好堅強嘅行為嚟嘅，係一個唔堅強嘅表現，或者覺得自己要自己自力更生，自己嘅事情要自己解決啦，或者甚至我哋會聽到有啲人講話，呢個就係我嘅命就係咁噶啦，一定係報應咁樣嘅，呢個係命中注定嘅。咁同時咧，最唔好嘅一種咧，就係有啲人會覺得好絕望啦， 覺得冇人可以理解到佢哋啊，同埋幫到佢哋啦，覺得一切都太遲啦，揾人哋幫手都係咁噶啦。咁就係呢個心病係冇辦法治療嘅。
I want to move on to kind of strategies, okay? So I think really it's important for us to change some of these ideas within our Asian American communities because it's never too late to get help. And that help is available if someone is open to it.
係啦，咁咧我哋可以點樣解決呢一啲偏見啊，或者係呢啲諗法咧？咁咧我哋就覺得任何時候去尋求幫助都唔遲嘅，只要你願意咧，隨時都可以有幫到你嘅人嘅。
Let's talk about what we can do. So here, I think, are some societal or community or cultural things that we need to shift within our communities. One of them is to eliminate or reduce the shame and stigma for mental health, right? We need to be able to have an openness to addressing this issue, just like someone knows that if you have physical pains and problems, it's okay to see a doctor, to see a nurse, to see a clinician about it, that it should equally be okay if someone is experiencing emotional or mental pain, that they should feel okay to see a specialist about that as well, right? COVID has not just impacted our lungs, our bodies, but it has also impacted our hearts and minds, right? And it's okay to get help for matters of the heart as well.
咁我哋可以從呢一個社會、社區同埋文化嘅變化嚟開始去改變呢件事啦。咁我哋首先就係要改變呢個社會對待心理健康嘅呢個態度啦。咁我哋唔應該令到嗰啲需要幫助嘅人咧覺得揾人哋幫手係一件唔好嘅事，呢個係一個唔堅強嘅事嚟嘅。咁疫情咧就唔單止影響咗我哋嘅呢個肺部功能啦，同埋身體，咁同時都影響咗我哋嘅呢個心同埋呢個諗法。
It's also talking about the need for more bilingual, Chinese-speaking, Asian language-speaking mental health workers, people like Ian, right, who is studying social work, who's going to become a bilingual social worker, right? We need not only more folks like Ian, we also need to make people like Ian more easy to find, right? Why are there not easy ways like hotlines or directories to find nationally, where those bilingual clinicians are? Right? So those are great suggestions and resources we need.
咁當然啦，呢個增加呢個雙語或者係雙文化嘅呢個心理健康嘅工作者、顧問同埋社工都係非常之重要嘅。咁好多人可能即係都有讀社工呢個專業嘅，咁同時都係呢個雙語嘅。但係咧更加重要嘅就係我哋可以點樣揾到呢啲人咧？我哋係咪應該要增加更多嘅呢個電話熱線啊，令到大家更加容易嘅去揾到呢啲雙語工作者。
And finally, also, all of us as people in society, right? We could all be better neighbors, allies, and friends to those around us, whether it's people we know or people we don't know, right? It means paying attention to people around us, making sure that people are not being harassed or assaulted on the streets, right? They're not getting bullied online. It's about being a good friend, a neighbor, and ally to see something, say something, right?
係啦，咁同時我哋都要成為呢個一個好好嘅鄰居啊，或者係一個好好嘅朋友、盟友或者係親人啊，咁就多多關心下周圍嘅人啦，唔理佢無論係識仲係唔識嘅，咁睇到人哋咧俾人蝦嘅時候咧，都唔好唔出聲。咁我哋要做一個即係多多去關心人嘅朋友。
And so we're going to wrap up with some suggestions on what we could do if either we experience some of these emotional pains ourselves, or if we know someone who's experiencing these issues. So I'm going to share some of these tips. So if we ourselves have a lot of things on our mind, it may be useful and helpful to find a trusted person, right? It could be a friend, a close relative that you trust, but it could also be, someone who is professional, right? In San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in the major metropolitan areas, there are often Asian language speaking counselors and clinicians and social workers who are able to help to talk about what you're going through and experiencing. If you know someone in your life who might need this support, we could also be the shoulder for them to lean on, right? And part of that means listen non-judgmentally. That means, with even if you don't agree with everything they're saying, it's okay. Be empathetic. Empathy means you put yourselves in their shoes to try to understand why they're feeling that way. And ask questions to let your friends know that you care. Direct them to resources if possible. And then next few slides, I'm also going to talk about how we could pay attention to warning signs to know whether that people we love may potentially harm themselves.
係啦，咁如果你可能覺得你自己需要幫手啊、幫助啊，或者係有啲煩惱啊嘅心囉囉攣啊咁樣嘅咧，你都可以去揾一個信得過嘅朋友或者係家人去講你呢啲煩惱嘅。咁同時咧，三藩市都有好多呢啲識講中文嘅社工啊同埋顧問咧，係可以去聽你呢啲煩惱嘅。咁如果你識嘅人或者係朋友啊、家人啊咁樣啊，需要一啲呢個心同埋情感上面嘅支持咧，你亦都可以做嗰個俾佢哋依賴嘅人，去用心聽啊，唔可以輕易咁樣做評判啊，唔可以輕易咁樣做判斷啊，同埋要有呢個同理心啦，要表示理解，或者係要安慰佢哋，甚至可以分享一啲你知道嘅資源咁樣嘅。係啦，咁下一頁咧，我哋就會講一啲當人哋情緒不穩定嘅時候，會有一啲嘅紅色信號咁樣噶啦。
Let me begin with some of the warning signs. So this is curriculum that came from a project that NICOS did around suicide prevention. So I want to show you, and I really love the poster. It says that behind every smile could be hiding pain. And you see that really image is very powerful, that people around us may look like they're fine. They may look like they're thriving, but inside they may be struggling with issues. They may be having pain that we can't see, right? So some of the signs to know whether someone may be in danger of harming themselves is one of the very clear signs is people who talk about wanting to end their lives or to hurt themselves, right? And one of the things to know is that the more of these bullet points, the more of these signs that they exhibit, the more risk they might be at self-harm, okay? Researching ways for self-harm or suicide. So one of the key signs is that the more thought out someone's plan is for hurting themselves, it means that they've really thought it through, that once they have a plan, it really significantly increases their risk for suicide. Someone who might be feeling overwhelmed by things in life, right? I'm sorry, that should be one bullet. Feeling overwhelmed by stress, feeling like they can't get out of certain difficult situations, okay? Feeling like they have no hope. You might also see someone who experiences mood swings. Throughout the day, they may exhibit different types of moods. They may exhibit a lot of anger or anxiety. Someone who is starting to withdraw from friends and life. They're not, showing up to things that they're usually used to showing up to. They're not participating in family dinners and get-togethers that they used to. Someone who's reckless behavior could be an example, could be someone who needlessly put themselves in danger by driving too fast or doing other things to risk their well-being, as if they don't care about their well-being anymore. Sudden drug or alcohol use, maybe someone who's giving away their possessions as if they're putting their affairs in order, which is the last bullet as well. Someone who expresses that they have no sense of purpose in life. These all could be warning signs that we should look out for.
佢頭先就講咗一個，當人嘅情緒不穩定嘅時候咧，就更加容易會做出一啲傷害自己嘅事情啦。咁我哋咧就會簡稱呢個為紅色信號。咁越多嘅紅色信號咧，呢個人咧就會越有可能會傷害到自己啦。咁呢個人可能會即係成日會喺度講緊呢個要點樣自殘啊，傷害自己啊，或者想要自殺啊，我想死啦咁樣嗰啲係啦。咁同時咧，如果呢個人有一個研究過呢個自殺或者係自殘嘅行為，即係有一個非常的仔細嘅計劃，都會係一個紅色信號啦。咁同時咧。如果係呢個人會成日都覺得一日落嚟啊，就好多呢個情緒不穩定，呢個好大嘅起伏咁樣嘅，可能會話冇咗工作啊，俾人炒咗啊，經歷咗離婚啊，或者係失去咗親人啊，咁樣同時都會令到一個人會覺得非常的絕望啦，係啦。咁同時咧，最後一個咧就係呢個人積極無神咁樣開始。即係可能整理緊自己啲財產啊，或者係交代緊自己啲身後事啊，都會係一個好嚴重嘅紅色信號啦。
In our wrap up, I want to share some resources. If you or someone you know are experiencing harassment or violence, maybe it's anti-Asian, maybe it's just in general, one of the most important things, if you feel like you are in imminent danger, you are in danger in that moment, is to utilize law enforcement by calling 911 in the US. There's also a couple of resources here I want to share with you. There's a 415 local San Francisco crime reporting hotline that has a voice recording message in Cantonese and Mandarin. And so this is a Chinese language crime reporting. This should not be used for emergencies because it's not answered by a live person, but it can be a good reporting tool after the fact of experiencing an incident. Let me stop there and then I'll do the second part.
咁如果係即係如果你或者你識嘅人啊，你周邊嘅人啊，係呢個亞外仇恨事件嘅受害者啦，或者你喺街上面經歷過俾人騷擾啊，或者係暴力嘅行為咧，打911咧會係最好嘅選擇嘅。但係咧如果係有人即係如果喺你安全嘅前提下，有人喺度進行緊一啲唔好嘅活動。咁你就可以用呢個非急救嘅呢個中文嘅犯罪熱線咁咧佢就可以俾你留言咁去嚟報導呢個事件嘅。咁你留言後咧就會有人嚟覆你噶啦。咁呢個當然啦係一個呢個非緊急情況㗎嚇。如果係緊急情況咧，最好就係打911啦。
And for those who are looking for resources, NICOS also has developed a website and that works on the computer and also on the mobile app called the Community Health and Safety Hub. And you can see the website is fairly simple, AAPI-safetyhub.org, or you can scan that QR code that you see, hopefully you can see well on the screen. Will take you to that website. So this website has a lot of resources, both in English and in Chinese, both for prevention. So things like self-defense classes that are being offered in the Bay Area, to information about getting how seniors could get accompaniment and escort service to appointments and to get groceries, to just a lot of general resources on how survivors of anti-Asian hate can get support, such as victim compensation and legal resources. So it's a very comprehensive site. There's also a calendar of events, of trainings and workshops that happen within the community. So we try to keep it updated, and would love to get your feedback as well if you wanted to give the resource a try. And if you have any resources that you would like us to add to our hub website, we would always be happy to hear from you as well.
係啦，咁我哋咧呢一個咧NICOS 咧都有呢一個網頁嘅，係有一個網頁嘅。咁喺上面咧就可以揾到好多唔同嘅資訊啦，係有點樣去對呢個亞裔嘅仇恨事件作出反應啊，或者係有同時都有呢個智慧嘅課程啦。同埋就有點樣去陪同老人家睇醫生啊，買餸啊，同埋就有呢個對呢個反類呢個亞裔仇恨事件嘅呢個幸存者提供呢個資源啦，就好似話點樣去攞呢個賠償啊。或者係服務呢個法律服務都有嘅。咁我哋有呢個網站咧，就喺呢個上面嘅。咁同時亦都可以掃我哋嘅二維碼啦，就可以帶到你去呢個頁面嘅。咁如果你有任何嘅諗法啊，或者係呢個意見啊，都可以向我哋提出嘅，咁我哋就可以覺得好嘅話，就可以加去我哋呢個網站上面嘅。
I wanted to also share some resources in the San Francisco Bay Area. These are all on our website that I just told you as well. So self-help for the elderly, for example, trained staff to provide a whole lot of support for seniors, including accompanying to different medical or grocery appointments, or to connect them to vaccinations or testing. There's also a lot of resources that other organizations provide, such as Gammun, that provides different self-defense and educational workshops to be more situationally aware when we're on the streets. CCSJ is a coalition that has a lot of victim and survivor resources, such as financial compensation and funds and other kinds of support. Finally, it's also important for folks who need it, who experience or witness or just feel very stressed out about anti-Asian hate, to get emotional and mental health support. And these are organizations that can offer those types of services. So APA, Chinatown YMCA, and NEMS, Northeast Medical Services. And I'm sure Diana will also share what UCSF can provide as well.
同時間咧，我哋都有好多呢啲係我哋一啲合作夥伴啦，咁佢哋就可以幫，即係有唔同嘅，即係唔同形式嘅幫助啦，對我哋。咁好似話呢個安老自助處咧，就有呢一個可以陪同老人家去參加啲活動啊，睇醫生啊、牙醫啊、接受疫苗啊，或者係檢測啊，咁同時咧就可以都幫手，即係陪同老人家一齊去買餸呢啲嘅。咁仲有就係金門啦，金門咧就有教好多呢啲智慧嘅即係呢啲點樣去保護自己嘅課程嘅。咁仲有就係呢個 CCSJ， 咁佢就會提供一啲呢個賠償，即係呢個如果有錢方面嘅需求嘅話咧，佢都會提供呢個賠償啊，或者係呢個服務嘅。咁同時咧，最重要嘅就係我哋嘅呢個心理健康啦。咁如果需要嘅話咧，咁就有呢一個亞裔家園服務處啦，同埋呢一個 YMCA 啦，仲有就係我哋最熟悉嘅東北醫院啦。咁同時咧 ，Diana 都會介紹下佢哋有啲乜嘢 服務可以幫助呢一啲有需要嘅人嘅。
Just a few more resources. We've listed a few hotlines and warm lines that folks can call for different types of needs, including just general mental health support or suicide prevention if someone is in crisis. There's also several hotlines that are available for dealing with issues like gambling, like smoking, like alcohol and drugs. One of the hotlines for the gambling is actually answered by NICOS.
係啦，咁同時我哋有啲資源咧係想要同大家分享嘅，咁就係有呢一個好多唔同嘅熱線啦，可以俾大家去即係有需要嘅話咧就去打嘅。即係如果有人有自殺傾向嘅，咁你又可以去打電話啦，就係24小時嘅，然之後一個星期7日佢都會開嘅，咁你可以發短信啊，或者係打電話都得嘅。咁同時咧就有呢個賭博問題都有嘅。咁呢上面咧有2個唔同嘅電話啦，一個係24小時7日嘅，咁有英文啊、西班牙文啊、廣東話啊、國語啊都有嘅。咁另一個咧就係得呢個英文同埋中文嘅。咁又有吸煙啊，同埋呢個吸毒或者係飲酒呢方面嘅都需要幫手嘅話咧，都可以打呢啲電話嘅。
And so we want to just really thank you for your time and for inviting us to be part of this program today. NICOS can be a resource for you if you have any additional questions about mental health resources, especially those that are in Asian languages. So you could see NICOS telephone number is listed here. Our general email is also listed. I'm happy to drop my email somehow in the Q&A or chat if possible. There's a QR code that you could also scan to add NICOS on WeChat, and we can also provide support through the social media platform as well.
咁就好多謝大家今日嘅參與啦。咁同樣呢個 NICOS 華人健康組織聯會咧都可以係一個非常好嘅資源嘅。咁我哋特別係一啲中國家庭嘅，咁我哋嘅電話咧就係呢一個415-788-6426嘅。咁我哋所有員工又唔係所有，但係大部分員工咧都識講英文同埋中文嘅。咁同時咧，我哋有呢個二維碼啦，有微信嘅朋友咧就可以掃一掃呢個二維碼，可以加我哋嘅呢個微信群。咁有任何呢個最新嘅一啲資源啊、知識啊，我哋都可以都會發上去嘅。咁同時 Michael 都會將佢自己嘅電郵咧發去呢個Q&A 或者係呢一個信息欄入邊嘅。有需要嘅話咧就可以揾我哋啦。
Thank you so much to both of you. Excellent presentation and so much resources. We have also some resources in another list that I compiled. So what we'll do is that we probably need to organize all that information together, and then we'll put it as a handout and then email it to you. So all of you, if you, I suppose that we have your email address, but if you don't, you want to make sure that you let me know that you want to have I send you the resource list, okay? Because I think that would be very important. 多謝晒 Michael， 多謝晒伊恩，多謝你哋兩位啊！真係今日嘅演講係非常之有用嘅。咁咧啱啱又係撞正呢個咁緊張嘅時間咧，係大家嘅心情又唔好啊，情緒又低落啊，咁係有好多精神上嘅困擾嘅問題。咁啊，大家係聽到阿 Michael 嘅正話嘅解釋咧，就係即係有啲係唔健康嘅做法嘅，有啲咧就比較係好嘅做法嘅。咁大家都要留意下自己嘅行為啊，就自己檢討一下有邊啲你而家做緊嘅嘢係一啲唔健康嘅coping， 即係呢個大家去應對嘅方法。咁就唔好做咁多啦，停咗佢就揾啲一啲好啲嘅方法去做嚇，出去行下即係行下街啊，咁都比較好啲嘅，係咪啊？咁咧就我係好多謝participant 裏邊咧係俾咗好多意見嘅，咁 Ray 啊，同埋有啲 anonymous 嘅 participant 咧，都俾咗好多好嘅意見我哋。So I want to particularly thank a couple of the participants who have share their thoughts in the box, in the chat box or Q&A box, and we want to thank you for that. They're very good suggestions. And one of it is that Ray keeps remind us that there is this 988 suicide line. 988 is a very good number that you want to keep in mind. It's easy to remember, and so you hopefully you never have to use it. But if you do, then you have it. 咁咧就係有一個熱線自殺嘅熱線電話，即係俾你求救嘅，就係988。咁咧呢個電話咧，希望你永遠都唔會用嚇，但係你如果需要用嘅時候咧，你記住呢個電話。咁我哋係好多謝阿 Ray 係提我哋呢個電話嘅。So one of the questions is, why do Asian Americans not seek help for mental illness? What is the problem with us, right? 點解我哋美國亞裔唔去有精神病都唔去問人去求助嘅？我哋病啊，有糖尿病啊，血壓高都要去睇醫生啊，點解你有精神病唔去睇醫生咧？
So I think we shared some maybe potentially cultural issues that we don't want to share, family secrets, or we feel shame. But I think some of the bigger issues is the structural and environmental barriers, right? I think we really need more in California. More than 1 out of 5 Californians speak a language other than English as their primary language. And our therapists and counselors simply don't reflect the California population, right? They're not as diverse. They're not as fluent in languages other than English. So that needs to change. But I think also culturally, I hope that we could start to have more conversations like these so that we can normalize seeking help, so that we can make it normal. Just like we go see a doctor, we could also seek a mental health professional for other, issues.
Very well said. Michael 正話就係講其實我哋個架構啊，係唔適合好多亞裔，因為我哋加州嗰度咧有好多亞裔咁啊，講不同嘅語言噶嘛。但係我哋可以同呢啲人溝通，做佢即係同佢做心理輔導嘅專業人士咧，係好多都唔係識講佢哋嘅語言，亦都唔識佢哋嘅文化嘅。咁所以咧嗰個即係好似個醫生同埋個病人咁，係兩個雞同鴨咁樣咧，就變咗係喺溝通方面係比較難嘅。咁但係因為你知咧，心理輔導好多時就係要講噶嘛，靠個講字噶嘛。咁如果你個講嘢嗰度係個溝通有咁大嘅問題嘅時候咧，咁咧變咗咧就係嗰個幫助可以幫助嘅人咧就係需要幫助嘅人係唔得到佢哋應該要嘅幫助咯，咁呢個係一個大問題嚟嘅。咁咧而且咧我哋亦都係要即係大家都要盡量係將件事提出嚟講，就係如果有精神病嘅就唔好遮遮掩掩啊，以為係好羞恥啊，即係唔想俾人知咁嘅嘢。咁即係你話俾人聽，你可以唔話嘅，你有糖尿病，你有血壓高係咪？但係好多時我哋都會有講話，哎呀，我又而家個血壓又高咗啦，我啲糖尿病嘅糖分又高咗啦，咁有時都會揞下噶嘛。咁但係咧，如果有精神病嘅時候咧，我哋係唔會揞嘅。咁其實講出嚟咧係好嘅，因為你慢慢講出嚟咧，就將件事正常化，即係話唔係一啲咁唔睇得、咁唔見得光嘅事，唔係一啲咁羞恥嘅事，根本亦都唔係，係咪啊？咁所以咧，呢個係我哋大家各方面咧都要應該係一齊努力去解決嘅。
And then is there less stigma around mental health now than before? I think there's definitely been huge improvements, especially, when we see like children of immigrants, younger generations are coming forward and asking for help more. We see that with our problem gambling project too, which is under mental health, right? And, children of gamblers are more willing to come to us and ask us, how do they help their parents? How can they start these difficult conversations? But I think there's still a lot of work we have to do, because in this country, we constantly have new influxes of immigrants and people who may not have the same kind of exposure to this type of information, right? So our work is never done. We have to keep continually work around decreasing stigma.
大家都知道而家即係點講咧，係有一個即係話，雖然而家可以話係即係後生嘅一代會比較即係比較識一啲，即係比較可以快接收咁樣，但其實咧，我哋同時都要好俾心機咁樣去注意一啲問題啦，好似話青少年賭博啊，或者係一啲屏幕使用時間嘅一啲問題啊，手機問題啊咁樣嗰啲嘅。咁同時我哋亦都有好多呢啲移民嘅，咁我哋就會有好多呢一啲資訊啦，去幫助大家嘅。
Number 3, what can we do to have more people speak our language and understand the culture, to be trained in mental health, right? And so I think Ian is a great model, right? Ian, I'm going to ask you to talk about yourself later, but Ian is a great model. As a young person, as a teenager, I think maybe even before you're a teenager, you volunteered for a nonprofit in San Francisco called CYC, right? And that was a good opportunity for you to see, hey, what is it like to help other people? What is it like to, not just do my own things and find my own, happiness, but what does it mean to make other people happy and make other people's lives better? So I think organizations like NICOS and many, many other community-based organizations can always take volunteers, take young people to be interns so that we could help inspire younger people who are Asian Americans, who are bilingual, to consider this as a field. And parents can also encourage their children, right, to volunteer, to be part of, opportunities to serve the community. I think that could also, I got a lot of that when I was young from my mom. And I think that's why I went into social work, because my mom really taught me that it's really important to, help those who have less than I do.
係咁，其實有一個即係雙語嘅社工或者顧問咧，係一個好難得嘅事情嚟嘅。咁其實咧，我哋可能作為大人啦，最應該去做嘅咧，就係鼓勵自己嘅小朋友咧，去多一啲參加唔同嘅活動啦，去參加一啲非牟利機構嘅義工啊。咁你通過參加呢一啲義工啊，就可以好好咁樣去了解到，幫助一啲唔同嘅唔同國家或者係唔同自己文化嘅人係一啲咩經驗咁樣嘅。咁我同時都係揀社工呢一條路咧，其實就係因為我高中嘅時候好細個開始就有參加一個非牟利機構嘅義工啦。咁通過呢一啲咧，就令我覺得咧其實咧呢個世界上咧有好多需要幫助但係又得唔到幫助嘅人嘅，所以係咯，好多唔同非牟利機構大家都可以了解下嘅。
Last one, if we observe someone behaving in an unusual way, what should we do, right? So I think, some of the ways that we could help, we actually create a curriculum that talks about how do we use our 5 senses to be good observers and be good neighbors and allies. So we could use our eyes, right? Pay attention. That means when we're on the street, we should not be head down on our phones, right? We should not have headphones in our ears. So we want to be observant of the environment. We could also use our phones to, take pictures and videos that could be helpful for helping someone who might be experiencing something, right?
咁我哋點樣可以更好咁樣，即係見到有人俾人即係使用暴力嗰啲嘢嘅話咧，我哋點樣可以幫到佢哋咧？咁我哋就可以用我哋呢個五官啦，我哋可以用我哋嘅眼睛啦，去睇去記錄，即係去睇過成件事發生嘅經過啦，或者係用我哋嘅呢一個手機去記錄成件事嘅過程啦。咁同時我哋都可以去即係等真正安全嘅情況下，我哋就可以去關心下佢哋，睇下佢哋係咪要更多即係 需要更多嘅幫助咁樣嘅。
And using our ears is important too, right? That's why I say don't wear earphones when you're outside so that you could hear what's going on. You could either hear if someone is in emotional distress, maybe someone's having a mental health crisis. Hearing what they're saying and what's going on will give you more clues, right? Or maybe you're hearing someone getting harassed, using our ears to listen to what they need. Are they asking for help? Do they want someone to try to intervene? And if we feel safe, we could intervene with our mouths, right? We could shout, we could distract someone to pretend that we know that person who's getting harassed, right? Like, hey, I haven't seen you in a long time, to let the perpetrator know that this person isn't alone. Those things could potentially be helpful as well, right?
同時我哋都可以用我哋嘅耳仔啦去聽，我哋就即係建議大家出門咧就唔即係唔好戴耳機啊，或者係多用自己嘅耳仔去聽下周圍發生嘅事情啊，會唔會有人喊到嗌緊救命啊，或者係需要幫手？咁我哋喺安全嘅前提下咧，我哋都可以去介入呢件事嘅。咁可以話即係利用我哋嘅嘴巴啦，我哋可以話扮我哋識呢個受害者嘅咁樣同時就可以即係話俾呢個施暴者聽，呢個我哋唔係一個人，佢係有人一齊嘅，咁可以話即係多多少少都會嚇住呢一個施暴者嘅。
I'll say two more senses, nose and hand, okay? So nose, using our nose to sniff out resources, right? To pay attention to what resources we have around us. Because just in case we or someone else is in danger, what's around? Do we have stores that we could go into to shelter in place? Do we have a police station nearby? Do we have maybe a nonprofit or a community health clinic nearby? So be aware of what resources you have around you. Using our hands, we could also extend a helping hand, right, to someone who needs it, whether it is calling crisis hotline in San Francisco. Now they're trying to have a separate resource. When you call 911, you could ask for a mental health crisis. So instead of sending law enforcement, which may not always be helpful in the mental health crisis, they will send mental health professionals who know the community, who have trust of the community, who could speak the language. So you could also extend helping hand by trying to connect the person to resources.
咁同時我哋都要用我哋嘅呢個鼻哥啦，去即係去睇下周圍即係發生事情嘅時候，睇下周圍係咪有一啲有冇警察局或者有冇一啲賣藥嘅地方咁或者係可以幫我哋嘅人。咁同時咧，我哋就可以用我哋嘅手啦，就出手去幫助一啲有需要幫助嘅人啦。咁我哋可以利用自己去同呢個受害者即係介紹一啲我哋已經知道嘅資源俾受害者啦。咁同時都可以話讓呢啲資源真正意義上咁樣幫助佢哋。
So number one is always safety first, right? You don't have to do everything I mentioned. You have to know your own limits and figure out, are you in a position where you are safe to act? So even if you're not able to speak up, even if you're not able to physically intervene, you could still do other things that are safer, right? Like taking videos or taking pictures or calling 911 discreetly from a safe location after you find a safe place. That's the last thing I'll say.
咁做呢啲所有嘢嘅，即係你唔一定要做晒所有嘢嘅，但係你做呢啲嘢嘅前提下，一定要係自己嘅安全第一啦。咁你唔使真係話真正意義上咁樣去介入，就可以話等於幫咗佢嘅。你同時都可以利用自己嘅手機去記錄呢一件事嘅發生啦，或者係利用用自己嘅手機去打911咁樣咁同時呢啲都係算係一種意義上嘅幫助嘅。
So just as Michael has put together resources, because really it's about resources. It's like when things happen, Well, who can you call? Where can you look up information? What do you do, right? So my resources are basically two parts. One part is for the UCSF students and staff, and because we oftentimes have UCSF staff and students, learners coming to our town hall. So I kind of put this up. I think that they know about it, but we also recently, just last year, formed the AAPI Coalition, and which is a coalition of all the different Asian groups on campus and in the medical center. And then we form together and then trying to build solidarity and come together when there's healing times needed, such as when in January, when we were shocked by those killings by Asians. And so we have student health and faculty and staff assistance programs. But then we have other mental health resources in the community, right? So these are links. So don't worry about it. What I'm going to do is that as long as I have your email address, we'll organize these links and QR codes and stuff together, combining with what Michael has provided, and then form a list for you. Because one of you also suggested that we should have a national list of all the different people that we can go to. That is actually a great idea. But that list, once you do it, is where you put it, and so that people remember to go there and get it. So that is the challenging part, right? Putting the list together and then keeping it updated, because people do move from job to job and leave from one city to another. So the updating so that you have always current information, that is a challenge to maintain the list. And then the other challenge is for people reaching into the list at the time when they need to. So, but this one here, I tell you, I'm so impressed with their work. Is MHACC. Is mental health for Asian American Chinese Coalition. So it's basically a 美國華裔精神健康聯盟. So it's a bilingual hotline. They can speak Mandarin, they can speak Cantonese, they can speak English. And so this one, if you just want somebody to talk to, but it's not a crisis situation, right? Call them. And then they have a website, just look for MHACC online, and you can go in and see all the different things that they have available. Not only do they just do hardcore counselors, they also have fun events. They can do, exercise classes, dance classes, singing classes, go on trips. When there's the Chinese New Year, Lunar New Year, they come together and celebrate and do things, fun things that can get people out of their homes and relax. And those are important things. So it can be just really normal activities that we do that can help with our mental health. So there's the Asian Mental Health Collective, and so different places. This also has many, many things, but what we do is that we're going to send it out to you so that you can have it, okay? So these are the downloads for Apple and for Android phones. And there's one that's your space is for people to talk and get support. So get a partner so they can talk with you. And it's in both English and Chinese. And then this one is My Sunshine is for providers, for caregivers, to build a caretaking schedule based on their family needs. So it helps them to schedule themselves to take care of their family needs. So anyway, so we probably should expect to see more mobile apps coming, because the apps are kind of changing our world of how we live and utilize resources. So I'm going to put all this stuff together for you, okay? 咁我正話俾你睇呢啲嘢咧，係嗰啲資源嚟嘅，有啲係手機嘅安裝嘅程式。咁如果裝咗落去咧，咁你就可以有啲可以幫到你。你需要有幫忙嘅時候咧，就可以撳一撳佢，你就有個電話可以俾你打啦。咁咧，然後咧就有一啲咧就係呢啲熱線啦，就係不同嘅網站啦嚇。咁呢個美國華裔健康聯盟咧，我係非常之欣賞佢哋做嘅嘢嘅。咁係喺灣區㗎，喺 Fremont 嗰度總部㗎，好似咁，所以呢個係我哋 local 嘅嚇。800-881-58502個電話就唔係咁好奇啦，應該揾一啲正話988就係嗰啲自殺熱線係嘛？應該揾一啲3個數字嘅，如果可以做到嗰啲咁嘅電話就最好。咁咧呢個咧就係上面嗰3樣嘢咧，就係 UCSF 嗰 嗰啲員工啊、學生啊嘅特別嘅資源嚟嘅。咁下邊嗰個 AAPI Mental Health Resources 呢個咧就係嗰啲都係就係呢啲咧英文嘅。咁咧就係俾華裔啦，同埋嗰啲亞太裔啦嚇。咁我哋就會將呢啲資源整理咗好之後咧，就會寄俾你哋嘅。咁咧今日咧就我哋再提一提咧，就大家你哋見到正話 NICOS 嗰個網站啦，我哋有網站嘅就係呢個AAPI.UCSF.edu， 咁上面都有好多資料嘅，咁可以上去睇啦。咁正話 Raymond 都寄咗個 link 俾你哋噶啦。咁然後咧，你如果係未參加我哋嘅 listserv 嘅咧，個電郵嘅咧，就可以寄個 email 嚟 add me to your listserv 就可以噶啦。喺個 subject line 嗰度寫住 add me to your listserv， 你就算用中文寫都得噶。So we will figure that out。咁然後咧就係呢個 Facebook 啦，你可以跟我哋 Facebook 啦，亦都可以跟我哋 YouTube 啦。你寫咗 Asian Health Institute 打落去YouTube 嗰度咧，我哋以前嗰啲視頻咧都會走咗出嚟俾你睇嘅。咁最好俾啲 like 我哋啦，係咪？咁咧咁當然係非常多謝大家參加我哋今日嘅講座咧，亦都係非常多謝我哋嘅講者Michael 啦，同埋Ian 同我哋做一啲咁好嘅翻譯啦。咁我哋當然亦都唔記得係我哋背後嗰度仲有兩位人士喺度幫我哋嘅，就係 Clifford 同埋 Raymond， 每次都有佢哋喺度幫我哋，我實在非常之感謝嘅，因為佢哋係非常之幫到我做到呢個咁嘅講座咯。咁咧，我哋今日咧就係第一次我喺結尾嘅時候咧，我唔打 Covid 嗰啲嘢出嚟咧，因為而家 Covid 而家慢慢係退啦嘛，呢個高潮退咗啦。咁我哋咧而家就唔講 Covid 啦，我而家講精神嘅健康問題。而家呢個係我哋應該最關注嘅問題嚟嘅而家。所以咧，我哋係好多謝大家抽時間嚟參加，亦都多謝你留心聽我哋講嘢。咁祝大家健康。So good night everyone and thank you. Bye bye.